And on April 10, 1973, in Stoddard County, Missouri, sheriffs and others reported at least 3 UFOs over Bernie and in Dexter. Objects changed color from white to red to blue, moved irregularly across the sky, starting and stopping, and changing their speed. On May the 12th of 1973, near Kent, Ohio, at 9:20 p.m., a witness was driving west on Route 76 near Kent when he observed a group of flashing lights overhead directly above the car. He stopped, and the light stopped. He described a football-shaped object that flashed from red to blue to white in a repeating cycle. Then, he saw a figure materialize approximately 10 feet below the object. The figure was human in shape, clad all in silver, and rapidly descended to the highway directly in front of the car. The figure stood rigidly in a position looking to the right, then turned its head to the left and looked at the witness. After about 30 seconds, the figure again ascended rapidly. It was shaped exactly like a human, but was entirely silver in color, lacking hair, eyes, and ears. By the summer of 1973, UFO reports continued. On June the 2nd, in Divernon, Illinois, a UFO with a series of bright running lights similar to aircraft lights was seen. A large orange-red light was turned on beneath the UFO, which lit up the entire landscape. On July the 13th, in Emden, Missouri, at 3:30 a.m., a witness arose when the dog began barking. The UFO was described as egg-shaped or oblong, about the size of an average car. It had a 3-dimensional appearance, like you could look through it or right into it. The outside was orange, and toward the center it was brighter and a slightly different color. Then from August to October, there were a flurry of sightings in Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi, witnessed by local and state police and many others. Fast-moving oblong objects with bright flashing or revolving lights. On September 19th of 1973, this famous UFO case occurred. After midnight above Tehran, Iran, 2 successive F-4 interceptors attempted to catch a radar-visual UFO that had been widely reported by civilians. Each time visual contact was made, the crew attempted to arm a missile and prepare to fire it. However, the weapon system's electronics failed on board the aircraft. Worldwide during 1973, UFOs were also being reported. Spain experienced a major flap along with Brazil, Belgium, and Australia. And on September the 20th of 73, the 59th day of flight of Skylab 3, astronauts witnessed and photographed a strange red object. Not more than 30 to 50 nautical miles from them, Alan Bean, Owen Garrett, and Jack Lossman reported the object was brighter than any of the planets. October of 1973 would become known as the month of the humanoids. 2 famous cases emerged from this month, the Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker abduction and the Jeff Greenhaw encounter. Both cases remain unexplained to this day. On a cool autumn evening in the South, many residents were thinking of the upcoming Mac Davis concert or football games. No one expected a UFO invasion. That would change on October 10, 1973. 15 different people, including 2 policemen, reported seeing a large silver UFO slowly fly over a housing project in St. Tammany Parish, New Orleans. The next day would be a day to remember for 2 fishermen in Pascagoula, Mississippi. It was the night of October 11, 1973. Charles Hickson went fishing with 18-year-old Calvin Parker from a pier at Shaw Peters Shipyard. The spot was an abandoned shipyard along the Pascagoula River at the southeastern tip of Mississippi. The 2 men intended to test some new fishing equipment, but had little success and were about to look for a better place. At 7 p.m. on this dark night, they directed their attention to a loud zipping sound coming from behind them. They turned around to see the source of the sound and were amazed and also terrified to see a gray-domed football-shaped or egg-shaped object surrounded by a blue glow hovering towards them.
And as I turned around from the pier and looked, something had come almost to the ground. It was hovering probably 2 foot, 18 inches or 2 foot from the ground, and I assume Calvin had heard the noise at that time. He turned to look, and there was some kind of door, a sliding door, I suppose, that came into the end of the craft that was toward us, and a very brilliant light came out of the craft. And I didn't know what to do. It startled me at first. I couldn't make out what it was. And about that time, there was 3 things began to move into the doorway. They came out the beam of light, came right up to Calvin and myself, and one took hold of this shoulder and one of this shoulder, and I seemed to rise up from the ground about the height that they were, and we proceeded to go into the craft. At this time, I saw Calvin. One had taken hold of him, and I saw him go limp, and I didn't know at that time, but he had fainted. He had passed out. But anyway, they continued to carry me aboard this craft, and as we went in the doorway, into the light in the room, compartment, it appeared to me that it was round, and light was glowing from the overhead, from the floor, and from the walls. It was so bright I couldn't see anything at that time. But we seemed to stop about the middle of the room, and they left me. By this time, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't move. The only thing I could move was my eyes. And I could tell that they had released me, but I still wasn't touching anything that I could tell. But something in front of me, in the wall in front of me, it seemed to come out of the wall. It was probably this big. It appeared to me that it was a big eye. It moved up toward my face and remained there for possibly a few seconds or a few minutes. And it moved downward. And I'm having to assume that it went under me and came up the backside, because the next time I saw it, it come over my head, came back in front of me again, remained there for a few minutes, and moved back into the wall and disappeared into the light. But at that time, that was all that I could see in the room. But several years later, after going under hypnosis regression, I could recall that there was something, some type of window there in that room. There was possibly another compartment, that there was something else in the other compartment, appeared to me. But these things left me there suspended for a while, and after a while they came back and they took hold of me and carried me back outside, and they didn't just throw me down, they seemed to just release me, and I fell to the ground. And about this time I saw Calvin. He was standing there by the river, and his arms was outstretched like this, and he appeared to me that he was in shock. And I don't know whether he had been aboard the craft or not, but there wasn't anything with him. He was alone at that time. So I was trying to make my way to him. When I fell, my legs were weak, and after a while, the feelings began to come back. And as I was trying to get up, I was making my way toward him to see if I could help him. And when I reached him, he didn't even realize who I was. He was going in shock. And I had to shake him. I even had to slap him and scream and holler to get him to realize that that we were all right. I thought that they hadn't done any harm to us physically that I could tell. But after a while, I got into where we could talk, and I assured him that I thought we were okay. But meanwhile, while this was going on, I heard the hissing sound again, and as I turned and looked, this craft, the blue lights was flashing again, and it just seemed to disappear. It went up and moved that fast.
Their heads were fixed directly to the shoulders. They had no neck, and their noses came to a point about 2 inches long. For ears, they had something similar to the nose. The mouth was just a slit. The arms looked like human arms, but long compared to body proportions. The hands were like mittens, and there was a thumb. Their legs remained together, and the feet looked like elephant feet. The entire body was very wrinkled, and Hickson stated that they could have had eyes, but he could not tell because of the wrinkly skin. The beings were a little over 5 feet tall.